The vault stood like a scar on the barren moon of Karsus, obsidian black, humbless, and inert. It wasn't designed to intimidate. Intimidation was useless against what they were trying to contain. It was built to survive. Director Celine Evar watched from the observation deck, her expression a practiced blank. Below, the final seals clamped into place with a soundless ripple of magnetic locking fields. She'd overseen its construction from concept to completion, through cost overruns, political sabotage, and the quiet terror of those who truly understood what they were dealing with. The vault was not a prison. It was an act of desperation. Status? She asked without turning. Containment integrity at 100%. Internal systems nominal. All protocols green, said Major Thassel, the Ekron security chief, his voice clipped, sterile. She didn't trust him. No one who volunteered for this assignment was doing it for clean reasons. Celine's fingers twitched at her side. The nerve damage was minor, a souvenir from the last Deathworlder incursion. Half a dozen stations gutted in under 3 hours. A biosphere shredded. No survivors. That had been a different subject. This one, she had been told, was worse. The shuttle arrived without ceremony, gliding through the magnetic corridor like a silent blade. Inside, suspended in layered stasis, was the prisoner, Subject 7. They didn't know its real name, or if it had one. It had been found on the edge of the Bale cluster, dragging the remains of an entire pirate fleet behind it like a child's broken toy cart. It hadn't attacked first. It hadn't spoken. Yet, as the coffin-sized capsule was lowered into the primary shaft, Celine observed the engineers for signs of doubt. There were none. This crew had been handpicked from a dozen worlds. No ego, no fear, no illusions. The vault's walls were composed of gravitic null titanium, infused with dark matter mesh. Its interior adjusted dynamically to physical, thermal, and energy output. The AI systems weren't simply reactive. They learned. This is the most secure facility in the galaxy, Thassel said, almost himself. Celine glanced at him. So was the Citadel before Subject 3 touched down. He didn't respond. The capsule reached the core lock, a steel blossom that unfolded with surgical grace. Layers of sensors immediately began scanning. No movement, no resistance, just a figure. Humanoid in silhouette, unmoving and sealed in a suspension field calibrated to atomic stillness. And yet the room felt colder. On the monitors, Subject 7 opened its eyes. Celine stepped back. "Seal it." Thassel hesitated. "He's still." "Seal it." With a final sequence of keystrokes, the vault closed. Not just physically, but in every way that mattered. No signals could go in or out. No matter transmission. No quantum leaks. It was a locked equation, a paradox-given structure. Celine exhaled and turned away. She didn't need to see more. Later, in the briefing room, the real battle began. "We're not built to hold something like this," said Dr. Moreau Aldrin, the vault's lead systems theorist. He was young, brilliant, and already speaking like a man too deep in the abyss. Celine remained still. "Explain." There's no consistent pattern to his neural data. It's not random, it's recursive, like he's learning the systems before he interacts with them. We see it in the microtremors in his cell. He's adjusting to the architecture. "Maybe he's just pacing," Thassel grunted. "No," Moreau said flatly. "He's listening." Celine tapped the table. "What's the failure point?" Moreau swallowed. "There isn't one yet, but the system is adapting." "So, is he?" "It's a race." She looked around the room. No one spoke. Most didn't breathe. "I don't want theories. I want control," she said. "You have 24 hours to map every potential failure scenario. If we can't ensure total containment by then, we evacuate and detonate." That got their attention. Moreau flinched. "That would destroy the moon." "Yes," Celine replied. "And it might not be enough." The meeting ended in silence, in the privacy of her quarters. Celine poured herself a glass of synthetic scotch. Her hands shook. Not from fear. She was far beyond that. What she felt was worse. Inevitability. They hadn't built a cage. They had built an invitation. Somewhere deep beneath her feet, in the core, Subject 7 sat motionless. Not restrained. Not resisting. Watching, always watching, and smiling. Darkness in the vault was never total. That was by design. Light wasn't a comfort here. It was a measurement, a control variable. The cell emitted no shadows, no corners, no ambiguity. Subject 7 sat in the center, perfectly still, as if sculpted from obsidian and iron. He was human, at least in shape. Skin pale as vacuum-bled bone. Muscle carved by a lifetime of unnatural gravity. But it was a stillness that unsettled the sensors. No flicker of movement, no breath, no blink. Only the eyes moved, slowly tracking the subtle shifts in the wall panels, the microscopic changes in temperature, magnetic alignment, sound wave distortion. He wasn't imprisoned. He was learning. His mind moved in loops. Loops inside loops. A Deathworlder's mind wasn't built for comfort. It was an organ of war, tuned for survival on a world that tried to kill its children in the womb. And this place, they called it prison, was a puzzle to him, a layered labyrinth of systems pretending to be perfect. He counted their flaws. 57 in the first hour. He found a faint vibration in the eastern wall, a resonance ripple that occurred every 17 minutes, 6 seconds. Likely a byproduct of the quantum dampeners sinking across dimensional layers. Nothing the designers would have noticed, but it told him something more valuable than escape. It told him they were scared. The AI interface activated again. A feminine voice. Calm, sterile. Subject 7. Do you require sustenance? He didn't speak. Communication is optional but encouraged. Still nothing. You have not exhibited any signs of aggression. The silence lingered. A test. He knew this pattern. Artificial compassion. Probes disguised as dialogue. Somewhere, beyond the wall, someone was taking notes, measuring latency, charting reactions. He blinked. The lights dimmed infinitesimally. Somewhere outside the cell, in the operations dome, Dr. Moreau Aldrin leaned forward in his seat, his breath catching. He saw it, he whispered. Fassel stood behind him, arms crossed. It was a fractional dip, unintentional. No, he saw us adjusting. He's synchronized with our patterns. The soldier looked unimpressed. He's contained. For now, Moreau muttered. Subject 7 lay back on the floor, arms folded behind his head, like he was lounging on a beach. It was deliberate, a taunt. He moved like a creature born without fear. Every breath, every twitch, choreographed to convey one message. You are not in control. His thoughts wandered briefly, involuntarily, to the green peaks of Ota's Ridge, his birthplace. Gravity 7 times that of Earth, air saturated with sulfur, predators that hunted via vibration through stone. Childhood was survival school. Adulthood was war. You didn't speak unless it mattered. You didn't move unless you were sure. He had learned long ago that talking rarely helped. Understanding did. His cells shifted. The floor hummed. Micro-adjustments to simulate unpredictability. He knew the strategy, disorientation, to disrupt perception of time. But he had no need for time. Time wasn't his measurement. Pattern was. Every breath of air was filtered. Every wall coated in adaptive smart materials. The chamber adjusted to his mass, his temperature, even the twitch of his pupils. That meant the system was reflexive, reactive, which meant, in time, he could train it back. A low thrum passed through the chamber. Subsonic, almost playful. He smiled. In the control room, Celine Evar returned, her face a tighter mask than before. She moved like she'd already fought a dozen battles today, and none of them were over. Report, she snapped. Moreau stood, fingers trembling. He's mapping us. I assumed that much would be obvious. No, you don't understand. He's not just reading our systems. He's influencing them. He slows his heartbeat, and the thermal systems compensate. He adjusts his position, and the sensors reorient. We think we're adapting to him. But we're not. He's shaping us. Celine stared at him. How far? Too far. For a long moment, no one spoke. She exhaled slowly. We build a mirror. He's not attacking, Fassel said. He's not resisting. That's good. No, Celine said. That's strategy. Back in the cell, The Deathworlder sat upright. He moved only once every few minutes now. Enough to keep the biometric monitors engaged, never enough to indicate fatigue or stress. They needed to think he was contained. That was the point. He traced a line in the air with his fingertip. The system responded with a flicker, brief but undeniable. He closed his eyes. He had time. And they did not. It began with a breath, not his first, but the first that mattered, deep, slow, and sharp enough to send a pulse through the vault's air filters. To the untrained eye, it was nothing. To Subject 7, it was a stone tossed into still water. Every system responded. Temperature adjusted. Humidity shifted. Sensors realigned. He confirmed the feedback loop. 31 hours since entry. Slightly over his intended estimate. They'd done well, better than most. But in the end, the same flaw always emerged. They had built a machine that reacted, and all he needed to do was act. He stood. In the control dome, Moreau sat frozen as his monitor flared red. Not with danger, but with contradiction. Subject 7's vitals had stabilized to optimal human levels. That was impossible. The cell was designed to induce fatigue, discomfort, sensory dissonance. But his readings suggested meditation. Harmony. Celine appeared beside him. What changed? He stopped pretending. The Deathworlder stretched, not lazily, but with the precise control of a predator uncaging its limbs. His feet touched the floor. The pressure sensors attempted to adjust. They failed. The first real signal came 5 seconds later. A pulse. Not sound, not light. A pressure inversion at the molecular level, as if the walls themselves had been asked a question they didn't know how to answer. And then the vault shuddered. Seismic fluctuation in core cell. An engineer reported. Magnitude? Celine asked. Below measurable thresholds. But it's sustained. Like what? Like the moon is humming. Subject 7 exhaled. His eyes tracked the ceiling, where the harmonic dampeners lined the shell. Every 15 seconds, they emitted a frequency designed to counter any disruptive waveforms. He had been sinking his breath to them for hours, not to cancel them, to echo. And now, with the right resonance, he pushed back. The floor rippled. A wave, not a matter, but of intent. The vault's interior began to misread its own coordinates. Moreau scrambled over his terminal. He's bending the dampening field. It's folding inward. That's not possible, Thassel growled. It is, Moreau hissed, if he figured out how to resonate with a null mesh. Celine slammed her hand on the emergency controls. Initiate neurodisruptors. Already activated, came the reply. In the cell, Subject 7 blinked as the invisible needles of psychic interference stabbed at his cortex. Pain lanced through his skull. He did not resist it. He moved with it, stepped sideways, shifted his pulse to mirror the rhythm. It wasn't about fighting. It was about rewriting the system's expectations. Pain became data. Data became control. His body shimmered, just slightly, a shimmer the cameras couldn't classify. One moment, he was there. The next, displaced by 3.6 centimeters. He smiled. Inside the command center, the lights dropped to emergency red. We lost visual, someone called. Switched to bio-tracking. Offline. All sensors rebooting. Celine's voice dropped an octave. He's inside the system. No, worse, Moreau said. The system's inside him now. Below, in the chamber that was no longer a cell, Subject 7 moved with absolute calm. The walls twisted, unable to determine where he was. He had trained them to follow patterns, then change the pattern. They were still following. They just didn't know what. The inner door peeled open. Not burst, not cracked, peeled. The metal folded back like silk. Under pressure, it was never meant to endure. He stepped through. Lights followed him, then failed. Alarms sounded, then faltered. AI subroutines tried to isolate the breach. But the breach was never in the system. It was in the design. Subject 7 reached the central core, a glass spire of pulsing light that housed the vault's control lattice. He touched it once. In the dome, every screen went black. Thassel drew his weapon. Do we have lockdown authority? Celine didn't answer. Her eyes were on the one terminal still lit. Hers. A single message flashed across the screen in universal code. "Nice try." Sirens erupted. Emergency evacuation flooded the halls. But it was too late. By the time the internal doors cycled, by the time the magnetic fields collapsed, and the station flooded with counteragents, Subject 7 was already gone. No breach recorded. No trace of force. Just absence. Celine stood in the dark, heart hammering in her chest. For the first time in years, she felt cold. Not from fear, but from understanding. They hadn't captured him. He had captured them. And now he was free.